thoughts, opinions, and general overall shade thrown on High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of High at 9 News, its audience, or its advertisers. The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your host, Jason Beck, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us.
You like the liberal tears? What about the conservative tears?
Yeah. Good morning, you guys. Man, it's getting feisty over here. Good morning. It's Thursday, October 30th. Today is, of course, it's today's National Wicked Day today.
Lick
Wicked, yeah.
Oh, I thought you said lick it.
Oh, God. Of course you would think that with that mustache,
I know her.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
It was Stone Stash talking. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I must ask you a question. Come on.
Oh, I see. That was good.
I like the Errol Flynn look, Stone.
Yeah.
It does you, man. I like it.
Mm-hmm. It's also National Publicist Day.
Publicist?
Publicist, yeah. Do you know, Dale? You know the people that promote things, promote people, promote articles, publicist.
I thought
could use one of those.
Written material.
Man,
okay.
You and me both, Nate. You know what I'm saying? Dale, this is what happens when I'm in the restaurant. I have to speak up for service day.
Well, I've got granddaughter who manages a restaurant, so
Yep.
I understand. Leave them tips.
Yep. 20% or more, unless you're absolutely terrible.
Well, you get shitty service right on there. Fuck you, and the horse you brought you in here ain't giving you a nickel.
Yeah, kick rocks. You're lucky I'm even paying the bill.
Yeah.
And oh man, this is one of my favorites right here. It's one of my favorites, Stone. You're gonna love this. It's National Candy Corn Day.
Oh, worse.
What?
Oh man,
Yeah, candy
that is
corn.
like the Donald Trump of Halloween candy. That and circus peanuts. Come on.
Oh yes, thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast, and please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look up above and down below to see exactly where we live on the internet, and we are live every Monday through Friday on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, X, Instagram, Facebook, Kick, as well as on our very own website at www.highat9news.com. So welcome to everyone joining us from any one of those platforms. And man, Dale, I got some legal information for you today, because the 10th Circuit Court rules that the 2018 Farm Bill does not preempt Wyoming hemp THC laws, you guys. The appellate court ruled that states like Wyoming have the right to redefine hemp in a more restrictive manner than the federal standard. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the 10th Circuit affirmed on October 27th that the 2018 Farm Bill does not preempt Wyoming state law enacted last year that regulates hemp THC products, including a ban on Delta-8 THC and synthetic cannabinoids. The plaintiffs in the case, including Casper-based Green Room LLC and 10 other hemp product retailers, manufacturers, and wholesalers, also argued in the federal lawsuit that Wyoming statute violated the Dormant Commerce Clause doctrine, amounted to an unconstitutional regulatory taking, and was unconstitutionally vague and overbroad. The U.S. District Court for the District of Wyoming dismissed their complaint in August, denying them injunctive or declaratory relief, and the 10th Circuit affirmed the district's court's dismissal on Monday, dealing a victory to Wyoming state officials, including Attorney General Bridget Hill and Department of Agriculture Director Doug Maiato. The lawsuit stems from Wyoming lawmakers passing legislation in 2024 to criticize the sale of hemp products with psychoactive substances. The legislation, the Senate Enrolled Act 24, better known as SEA 24, amended Wyoming's 2019 hemp laws to 1. Change the definition of hemp to exclude synthetic substances. 2. Expand the definition of hemp to include all THC in the 0.3% calculation, not just Delta 9 THC as written in the 2018 Farm Bill. And 3. Add naturally occurring and synthetic Delta 8 THC to Schedule 1 of the Wyoming Controlled Substances Act. In a quote, thus it became unlawful in Wyoming to manufacture, deliver, or possess with intent to manufacture or deliver hemp or hemp products containing more than 0.3% THC, including Delta 8 and Delta 9, or synthetic substances. Even though these products may be legal under the federal law, the 10th Circuit Judge Harris L. Hartz wrote in his week's opinion. In affirming that Wyoming lawmakers acted within their authority, the 10th Circuit joins the 4th and 8th Circuits in ruling that the 2018 Farm Bill, which federally legalized commercial hemp cultivation, does not preempt a state's ability to regulate hemp more stringently than federal law. The 4th Circuit ruled in January that Virginia's law defining hemp by total THC and placing a 2 milligram per package limit on hemp products did not violate federal law, and that circuit also covers Maryland, North Carolina, South Carolina, and West Virginia. And the 8th Circuit ruled in June that Arkansas law prohibiting intoxicating hemp-derived cannabinoids by classifying Delta 8, Delta 9, and Delta 10 THC, among other compounds, as a Schedule 4 substance did not violate federal law. That circuit also includes Iowa, Minnesota, Missouri, Nebraska, North Dakota, and South Dakota. In the 10th Circuit, which also includes Colorado, Kansas, New Mexico, and Utah, the plaintiffs argue that Wyoming's law should be preempted by the 2018 Farm Bill because it, in quotes, imposes an impermissibility, a narrower definition of hemp that conflicts with the federal standard. While the 2018 Farm Bill affords states the right to regulate the production of hemp, the plaintiffs argue that it does not grant states the right to redefine hemp, claiming that the state's officials violated their constitutional rights. The 10th Circuit ruled that the plaintiffs lack a substantial federal right to support their preemption claim, and in a quote they say, plaintiffs argue that their preemption claim is derived from 2 substantive rights, 1 constitutional right and 1 statutory right. We are not persuaded, Hartz wrote. No language in the 2018 Farm Bill speaks in terms of individual rights. It does not say, for example, that licensed hemp producers may produce hemp as federally defined, or that no person shall prevent licensed hemp producers from producing hemp as federally defined. If anything, hemp producers are the person or persons regulated, not the individuals protected by the statute. As the district court explained, the mere fact federal law defines hemp does not mean it confers a right to hemp under that definition. The plaintiffs argued that the SEA 24 violated the Dormant Commerce Clause, a federal doctrine meant to prevent states from passing laws that restrict interstate commerce. And the 10th Circuit ruled that Wyoming's hemp law doesn't discriminate against interstate commerce since it does not distinguish between hemp produced in-state and out of state. And also, according to the court, the plaintiffs did not claim that they transport hemp products from one state to another through Wyoming. And under the 2018 Farm Bill, states cannot interfere with the interstate commerce of hemp by preventing the continuous transportation on federally compliant materials through their borders. However, the 10th Circuit did not attempt to interpret whether Wyoming law collides with this Farm Bill provision. And in a quote, they say, "We should not interpret the Wyoming statute to prohibit such transportation before the state courts have had an opportunity to interpret state law to avoid such a potential conflict with federal law," Hartz wrote. Plaintiffs also argued that SCA 24 is unconstitutional regulatory taking of their property without just compensation, and the Green Moon announced on social media late last month that it will be permanently closing its hemp store at the end of 2025 because the law changes have put us into a position where we can no longer stay in business. In the lawsuit, the plaintiffs argued that they reasonably relied on the federal definition of hemp along with similar language in the 2019 Wyoming hemp law when they developed their business. The court did not see it that way, and in a quote, SCA 24's new restrictions on the production and sale of certain hemp products, they say, impermissibly interfere with their investment-backed expectations, Hartz wrote. They assert that moving the goalposts in the middle of the game by changing the definition of hemp constitutes a regulatory taking. We cannot agree. The court ruled that the plaintiffs should have been well aware that Wyoming state lawmakers could change their views on hemp and hemp products, and in a quote, the state need not provide just compensation every time it adjusts its regulatory scheme, even if those changes incidentally impair or even destroy the business of some, he wrote. Finally, the plaintiffs argued that SCA 24 is unconstitutionally vague and overbroad, asserting that the definition of a synthetic substance is unclear and that term psychoactive is not defined in the legislation. CBD is non-intoxicating hemp compound, could be interpreted as psychoactive substance under SCA 24, resulting in the demise of Wyoming's entire hemp industry, according to the plaintiffs. And the 10th Circuit ruled that reasonable reader of the Wyoming statute would conclude that CBD does not constitute a psychoactive substance and that the defendants have affirmatively agreed CBD is not banned under the law. In a quote, at most, plaintiffs raise nothing more than a routine question of statutory interpretation. That is, what does psychoactive mean in SCA 24, Hertz wrote. If a statute could be struck down just because it is amenable to different interpretations, very few would pass constitutional muster. Well, Dale, I can't wait to hear what you have to say about this. Man. Sounds like the hemp industry just got struck a blow by this Wyoming judge, and I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this.
Well, this is a classic 10th Amendment versus federal government. Who's got the power and the right to do something here? And I want to remind people that the basic premise is the states and the people have all the power, except for that specifically granted to the federal government. And when the federal government acts, if it acts with the power granted, it can put into its laws that something is completely prohibited, or we're not going to say that, which means that we share jurisdiction with the states. That's where we are here. The federal government made alcohol legal, but it didn't have the power to tell the states, you can't make this illegal. No, they have that right. Same thing with this. Hemp is not illegal federally. It's not illegal federally because of the definition that we've all gone round and round about. What the hell does this actually mean? Because you don't like the word loopholes, but there's ways to get around it. And honestly, Forrest Gump figured out how to get around this shit. So the states are trying to take their inherent power under the 10th Amendment, protect their population. Okay? And, you know, we have all these laws for marijuana. Marijuana is federally illegal, but states have all kinds of laws under their power, you know, to get how they want to. The Dormant Commerce Clause, almost by definition, you have to set up trade barriers that give preference to your state and not to others. That's the premise. Because from the Articles of Confederation Day, they figured out if we let states do this, we're going to have a mess, okay? You cannot set up these kinds of preferential trade barriers in your state. They'll throw it out as a Dormant Commerce Clause. We don't have this here. I mean, the state of Wyoming can tell the feds, you can drive your trucks through our state full of hemp, but you can't then distribute it in our state unless we allow you. That's basically what they said here. You can drive across the state, but if it's got these products, fine. And they didn't find it to be unconstitutionally vague, if you will. Intoxicating, I mean, come on. The average person sitting in a bar, if you say, what's intoxicating? They'll show my shot of whiskey. You know, I hit this joint. I smoke some Delta. Is it intoxicating? Yes. A 5-year-old can understand that. So these arguments, it's like, you know, give me a fucking break. Now, you're being paid to be in court to say this stuff. But when I've walked out of court many times and going, yeah, that dog didn't hunt too well, did it?
Yeah.
Or I've had it handed to myself. So I got to go in there. I'm telling you, this ain't going to work, but I'll say it because I'm your attorney. But man, my butt's going to be real hurt, and you better pay me well when I get out of court because this is going to hurt.
Yeah, I feel like they could have came up with some better arguments than what they came up with, Dale. I do agree.
Well, yeah, but their bag of tricks only has so many tricks in it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and this it's a one-trick pony here, dude.
Yeah.
And we've heard it how many times? The same thing. And like I said yesterday, I hope the Supreme Court steps in and goes, all right, let's take the eraser and let's erase all this bullshit that people are arguing to us here.
Yeah.
And let's go back to some basic constitutional principles. States can pretty much do what the hell they want to do unless the feds act under their powers they are granted and they do it reasonably.
Yeah.
So we don't have that here.
Mm-hmm.
They're still trying to figure out what does hemp mean? The courts are not going to figure that out. Scientists have to come in and help them. And it turns into expert testimony. And again, you can find a drunk in a bar and he can explain to you what it means to be intoxicated.
Yeah. I have one other question in regards with how this would work is a lot of Wyoming is a very favorable state to form a corporation in. So couldn't you still have a Wyoming hemp company that just didn't operate in Wyoming, Dale? Under this. Oh.
You actually can set up a corporation with the name hemp in the name. There's no law against that. It's what you actually do with the corporation that matters. In this case, if you're trying to sell, intoxicating hemp products under a hemp corporation, good luck with that.
I guess Stone's
I'm
not
betting on the other side.
I guess Stone's not going to be going to Wyoming anytime soon for some Delta 8, apparently.
Swagger.
Oh, you're a funny guy. Funny guy.
I mean, they have a lot of tumbleweed out there in Wyoming. You know what I'm saying, Stone?
Yeah. This is all ridiculous, and it's all a freaking mess, man. It really is. Like what they've done to the plant and the separation of hemp and cannabis. It's just stupid. Like,
I'm with you.
Drives me crazy, man. Need to go back to the drawing board, deschedule or bust, and weed for the people.
I'm with that, baby. I'm with that all the way, Stone. I'll second you on that. Any thoughts on this?
How crazy is it? Yeah, how crazy is it that we've gone like full circle? Because remember 10 years ago when everybody was basically saying, no, don't touch our weed, states' rights, right? Give us the opportunity to actually hold on to this, and this belongs to us. And now that state rights are trying to take their cannabis business away, they're like, but these federal laws, these are doing really well.
Exactly.
I did not see that coming. That was not on my bingo card. Like just the notion that like people went, but state laws, and then obviously that door, and then they're like, but federal laws.
But federal law trumps state law.
At a certain point, I lost a tiny bit of the story. Did they say what kind of products were being affected? Is it literally all products?
Everything except for CBD. Everything, any psychoactive product, any synthetic cannabinoid. So basically everything except for CBD.
All right. So the synthetic cannabinoids is an interesting one. I mean, that's weird that somebody pulls like ambiguity into there, because you could say that the plant synthesizes certain chemicals.
The plant does not synthesize.
But typically, that name would be given to lab-made cannabinoids. That doesn't seem ambiguous to me in the least. And generally, lab-made cannabinoids, like that's like the spice and K2 kind of shit that we saw out there,
or Delta 8, even Delta 8
directly. Not really Delta 8.
Delta 8 is the same thing. It's lab made. Delta 8 does not occur.
It's modified. You wouldn't refer to it as something that was synthesized.
Delta 8 does not. So, Delta 8 does not naturally occur in the plant. That's my whole point.
Delta 8 as a chemical absolutely can naturally occur in the breakdown of the plant.
In the breakdown, not naturally in the growth.
How you're thinking of how most of the Delta 8 ends up in the market, you're right. That's not a natural process. They use a sulfonic acid and they burn the crap out of the molecule until it turns to something else. Basically flips into an allele of itself. And that's what you have there. What you've got with synthetic cannabinoids in that name has generally been given to various chemicals and analogs of those chemicals that have just wreaked havoc on the endocannabinoid system, and they're just a bad idea altogether.
Nate, I would also consider spray packs synthetic cannabinoids too, once they've been sprayed.
You were saying like as an application process.
Yep.
I mean, I would split hairs here. I would say that you could use synthetic cannabinoids one way or another. and that you could have different application processes one way or another. But if you're referring to like the application, like commercial application process of like a spray application, you're right. That's not a good way to have enjoyed the plant. That's the equivalent of taking like, pencil shavings and making them cannabis flavored and telling people to smoke that, what the cigarette industry does, right?
Yeah.
So you would be doing that kind of shit. So anyhow, what I think you're talking about there could be utilized with anything. You could go to ultimate crap and spray something with synthetic cannabinoids. But that much said, I have seen certain applications where you just need to spray things. I think I agree with you that I'd rather have cannabinoids made into something than sprayed onto something. But if that's the lens right there, I mean, let's talk more about it. We can go pretty deep into the edibles and manufacturing ranges if you are curious about that. That's it's a whole story on its own.
It gives whole new meaning to this thing. Oh, go ahead, Stone.
I was just saying, it's just all unnecessary. The plant is perfect the way it is. You've made these stupid regulations that have forced people to find other ways around your stupid regulations instead of just opening up the clean, natural plant the way it is. And they've created this. Another problem they've created. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just last week, one of us reported on an MJ Business Daily story where the literal largest, it was Allen Iverson behind it. It was the largest cannabis deal ever made in history. And that was basically made under hemp industry.
That was a Circle K deal to sell.
It was a
beverage.
Circle K sale. Yeah. And so there's 3,000 stores that are now going to be carrying a certain brand of product.
Yeah.
I mean, how is
not in Wyoming though?
Impact all of that.
Not in Wyoming.
Well, that's what I mean though. It's interesting because now we're actually seeing both the birth of an industry and the birth of like a dry state kind of scenario too, right? I mean, is everybody seeing what I'm seeing?
I see it, and I just have to say, at the end of the day, say it, don't spray it, and we'll be right back after this next commercial.
Give them a joint and they smoke it. It's like, is this hemp? And you go, I can tell.
It's all hemp. It's all THCA at the end of the day, Dale. You know what I mean?
If it's a THCA product, you literally can't tell because all weed is THCA.
I can tell. I can tell every time. I'm a professional at that. I have the most acclimated palate on the planet. Okay.
That's a joke though, right, Jason? Because literally it's the same effing thing.
I could totally tell. I promise 100% of the time. But you know what, you guys, there's some other things going on because there's teens who use weed before the age of 15. Apparently, Stone, have more trouble later, a study finds. Teens who start using cannabis before the age of 15 are more likely to use the drug often and later in their lives. They are also more likely to develop mental and physical health problems in young adulthood compared to their peers who did not use the drug in adolescence. Those are the findings in a new study in JAMA Network Open, and in a quote they say, "This further builds the case that cannabis use in adolescence adversely affects the health trajectories of those who use it," says psychiatrist Dr. Ryan Salton at Columbia University, who wasn't involved in the new research. The new study used data from the Quebec Longitudinal Study of Child Development and must have been smoking Canadian weed. Researchers in Montreal, Canada, have been following more than 1,500 kids since birth into young adulthood to understand the factors that influence their development and their health. Among the various aspects of the kids' lives and habits, scientists have recorded in cannabis use between ages 12 and 17. The researchers found that a majority of teens, 60%, didn't use cannabis in adolescence. Among the remaining 40%, half started using cannabis in their late teens, and by the time they turned 17, they used the drug frequently. Less than once a month, that the remaining 20% started using marijuana before they turned 15, and by age 17, they were using it at least once a month. I don't think once a month is that often, but whatever. This last group was more likely to seek health care in young adulthood for both mental and physical health conditions compared to those who didn't use the drug as young teens. And in a quote, they say, "The risk is concentrated among those who start early and use frequently," says psychologist and the study's main author, Massimiliano Ori at McGill University. Early frequent cannabis users had a 51% higher chance of seeking care for mental health problems in younger adulthood compared to those who didn't use the drug, and the risk was calculated after controlling for a range of confounding factors that are known to influence health, like bullying or lack of parental involvement. That sounds like a bigger problem to me. And similarly, early and frequent users of cannabis had an 86% higher chance of needing care for physical health needs. In a quote, We have some indication that respiratory problems were most frequently reported, and also incidents and unintentional injuries," says Ori. These physical health problems may have to do with intoxication from cannabis, but could also be due to withdrawal symptoms, wrote Ori and his colleagues in the paper. "That certainly makes sense," says psychologist Krista Ladashel at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, who also studies teenage brain development and health, but wasn't involved in the new research. "It's alarming and something that we really need to be tracking more seriously here in the United States as well." As a major strength of the study is that Ori and his colleagues controlled for so many confounding factors, adds Lashdell, and says, "There are a lot of factors that are co-linked with physical health as well as mental health," says Ladashel, and the new study controlled many of them, including family-parental conflict and parenting style, as well as parental monitoring of the teens. They also looked at factors at the individual level, like social skills, peer relationships, and whether a kid was victimized by his peers. Prior studies have also found a link between the teen cannabis use and higher risk of developing mental health symptoms, and Sultan's research found a 2 to 4 times higher likelihood of developing psychiatric disorders for teens who use cannabis recreationally compared to adolescents who don't use the drug at all. Excuse me. Other studies have suggested a link between early cannabis use and psychosis in youth, and he and his colleagues also found a higher risk of other impacts like poor grades and truancy. Truancy. Oh, man. I love that word. In a quote, "The adolescent brain is continuing to develop in a very dynamic fashion during the adolescent period and all the way into young adulthood," says Ladashel. "Using something like cannabis regularly during this period might disrupt that healthy neural development, especially in areas of the brain that are related to executive functioning, which is like problem solving, planning, maybe controlling other kinds of behaviors and impulses, but also emotion regulation," she says. Take, for example, a teen who's prone to anxiety who turns to cannabis to feel less anxious, says Sultan. "If you start to do that on a regular basis, this is how your method for managing your anxiety," he says. "This will become your coping skill and you become atrophied in any ability to manage it in another way." The same thing can happen for someone who uses cannabis to manage their mood, he adds. For someone who's already predisposed to some mental health symptoms, starting cannabis use in adolescence can make it more likely these symptoms will worsen over time into mental health disorders. And for these reasons, Sultan, a child and adolescent psychiatrist, says he often talks to teens and parents about delaying use of cannabis until they are 25 to minimize the risks of health and behavioral issues later on in life. Well. I think we've always said that yeah, if you already got mental issues, you probably shouldn't be using cannabis, especially if you're young. But at the same time, if you're young and healthy, I mean, let your parents be the adult in the room. And I think the biggest thing about this whole study is that they note the lack of parental supervision, and that's really is the crux of this whole study, in my opinion. But I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this.
Yeah, lies, damn lies, and statistics.
Yeah,
I mean this stuff should be taken with a large grain of salt, because they say, "Oh, we factored in confounding factors." horse shit. There's an argument still goes on in the psychiatric community between nature versus nurture. Okay. And Heather just forwarded to me a study which links a gut biome in children to depression later on in life. So did they factor in that in their study?
Yeah.
They're full of shit. I mean, I'm not saying you don't publish and say, hey, we need to look at some things here. Let's see if we can figure out some particular study areas, bring the medical community and the psychiatric community in, and see if we can try to figure out what effects there might be of using popular substances out there and later, mental health. I'd love to see that happen. But you get people with emotional truths and they hear something, go, oh, we got to outlaw this stuff. Look what it does. Now I'm going to point to the medical community. These pusillanimous little shits, they keep looking for some reason to say, oh, you can't use when you're pregnant, it's going to cause what? Yeah, cause what? You got kids with an arm coming out of their forehead? Yeah. Okay. I took care of patients that took Bendectin that had flippers here on their feet. Okay. That's a real problem. Some kids who's depressed and they go, oh, it's got to be because they start smoking weed at 12. Their dad's gone. Their mom's a crackhead and the kid's living on the street. But it's weed that causes. Yeah, fuck you. Just stop it. The egos are involved here and the emotional truths are just, the buzzers are going off. Oh, we got a comment about this. Don't let kids smoke pot. I'm not in favor of kids smoking weed, but let's go to Jamaica. How many kids there suffer from the same goddamn depression? Our teenagers are suffering from this fucking piece of shit right here. Okay. That's a real problem. And we get all that's published and talk about, well, smoking weed early cause. Yeah. Take this shit away from kids because little girls are killing themselves or boys are getting calluses on their hands from spanking their monkey, watching these goddamn things.
Watching OnlyFans.
To our kids?
Yeah. Fair enough. Fair, man, Dale.
Yeah, it did sound suspicious to me. Like that's what thought, essentially automatically entered my head as I was listening to this. This sounds a lot like the standard trend information that I've been reading about kids in these age ranges and what societal norms seem to be impacting them, on this age range and what it's doing to them. And if you say, look at this group and how they're affected, I've read that, I feel like numerous times. And then I felt like this article was essentially look at this group and how they're impacted and all the same data. And all they said is they could be smoking weed while they're at it. And that doesn't seem to really be that moving. I mean, again, on the same point, I think you've got, Jason, I'm going to just roll the dice here, 3 dads who smoke weed. I don't want to play this dad gatekeeper card on who can smoke weed and when and all of that stuff. But it's the parent's responsibility. It's something that we're responsible for in terms of being in the kid's life and making sure they're ready for stuff. And so many other things preempt, when you should smoke weed. There are so many other things to build in. I didn't start smoking weed until late in life. That doesn't mean necessarily anything. It's just all of the things that had to preempt that were able to happen. And go figure, I had a relatively healthy upbringing. And that's a reflection of anybody who has a relatively healthy upbringing. It comes so many times more to mental health crisis and needing to focus on that kind of stuff. And I mean, at that point, cannabis is a footnote.
Here's the whole thing. Here's the whole thing that kills me is they're talking about kids using cannabis to cope with depression, and meanwhile, you have these drugs that will push these psychotropic meds like Zoloft and other stuff like that on these kids for depression. And I'll beg to differ to say which one is greater than and worse than. Because I've taken some of these drugs before, bro, and had them prescribed to me, and those things are not the business at all whatsoever. I lived a much more happier life just consuming cannabis and not taking any of those type of pharmaceutical barbiturates that they like to just pump down people's throats.
You'll be better off for it too, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea of being able to limit things that have needed to be processed through any means necessary in order to make that product happen can be some really, really messed up stuff. There's, whether or not you can put all your meals in a pill is very much different from what do you need to do to that pill in order to make that work. And the answer is not always going to be a happy one. So, in this same case, you have the opportunity for something natural as an adult. Of course, I would recommend that. Of course, I would push for that.
Yeah.
I would consider any, as you've just suggested, natural, alternative to something that's just been pressed and formulated, always to be the best solution.
I don't think Stone has much to say on this because I don't think Stone has ever been depressed. I mean, look at that face.
Stop it. I have nothing else to add that hadn't already been said.
Okay.
It's of all the things out there. I mean, obviously they're kids. You don't want kids, doing what they're not supposed to be doing. There's things that aren't developed yet, but shit, man. I mean, I started experimenting when I was 13, and then by high school,
no way,
we were smoking all the time. We did fine. I saw nobody freak out. Nobody got psychosis. Nobody led to, because of cannabis, led to anything negative. And kids are going to be trying so many things, not outside of prescriptions, but going to be trying so many things in high school of all the things that's going to come across them. Cannabis is not the one to be worried about. But it's about fucking what's going on now is a lack of education and honest conversations. That's what needs to happen more.
I wish they would have focused this thing on the lack of parental oversight and talked about that, because to me that's the biggest thing, because your parents and how you're raised are going to be the biggest deterrent in whether or not you consume cannabis as a child or as an adolescent, and your relationship with your child is what is going to determine that inevitably. And so all these parents need to take some accountability.
Accountability, and let's not forget the reports the studies that we've reported on here that show that prohibition had created the taboo that draws your kids to this thing that's not really a thing. It just normalizes it.
And in all fairness, if I had some of these woke teachers that are teaching our kids nowadays, I would want to just be truancy every day also myself. I wouldn't even show up to class.
Truancy. Christopher had a band in the 90s called Truancy. I don't know if you ever caught it.
Yeah, let's look at that. Look at that. Shout out, Chris. Yes. Well, we're going to keep this train rolling. We're going to roll right into attorney at law, Mr. Dale Schafer. Dale has been an attorney since the Reagan administration. He has represented physicians, hospitals, insurance companies, cops, corrections officers, and for the last 25 years, he specialized in cannabis law. He served a 5-year federal prison sentence for helping medical marijuana patients and managed to save his law license. He's blunt. He doesn't smoke them because they're ratchet, they're nasty, and they turn your teeth yellow and other things yellow, but he is honest and he's unconcerned with your opinion, public opinions, anyone else's opinion, however they choose to identify. And he will show you how he can defy gravity by pissing up a rope. That's right, it is your favorite Tio Loco, and you can now find him at his own law office at the law office of none other than Dale Schafer.
Good morning, everybody.
Yeah.
Your favorite Tio Loco and full of shiticus again. I'm on one this morning.
Yeah, he is.
And the story that I've got this morning comes out of Marijuana Moment yesterday from Kyle Yeager, and it involves whole plant psilocybin mushrooms for see a study about PTSD. Now, the headline is Arizona approves first of its kind study exploring whole mushroom psilocybin therapy to treat PTSD. Now, this caught my attention for a number of reasons. First, I'm a veteran. I've been diagnosed with PTSD. Mine's relatively minor compared to a lot of my friends and clients who are just batshit crazy after being in combat. Okay, so it's the batshit crazy ones that get my attention. And this study involves a group of first responders and veterans with PTSD, cops, firefighters, and veterans. So we don't have somebody you dug up from the Tenderloin in San Francisco that's a heroin addict and all kinds of shit, and let's study them. No, we take people that our society or our culture says, these are stand-up people. I'm not going to come in and bullshit you. They've been doing what we ask them to do, and as a result, their mind is twisted into a knot. Okay, the other thing that I want to give a shout-out to Sue Sisley. I've known Sue now for, I don't know, years, long time. And she's one of the few physicians that I give props to. Most of them are pusillanimous little shits that'll just roll over and stick their ass in the air when the government says, don't do something. Sue, she strapped it on. She took on a study of cannabis for veterans with PTSD. And I'm telling you, they drug her ass through the ringer. She finally jumped through all the hoops, went to court, got fired from a university, finally up in Colorado, got through all the bullshit the DEA threw up, and did a study where veterans of PTA smoked weed. And guess what? Their symptoms were better. Oh, it's shocking, mind-boggling. Give me a fucking break. But Sue did all the hard work, and I want to give her all the props I can. She took on the government head on, got a Schedule I license, got the weed and got an acceptable medical use for cannabis. Okay. That's my props for Sue Sisley. This group, Scottsdale Research Institute, are the ones that were pushing forward PTSD study for weed. Now they're going to take whole plant mushrooms. They think have a predictable amount. It was 40 milligrams, I think, of psilocybin in it, and they're going to give it to these people. Hey, I know what the outcome's going to be. I think, Stevie Wonder can see what the outcome's going to be. But because they put mushrooms into Schedule I, got to jump through all these stupid ass hoops to get to a place where, okay, they're going to give you the permission to give people this for at least a phase 2, maybe a phase 3 study. And you can publish it. And now you can say with a straight face, we have an acceptable medical use for whole plant psilocybin mushrooms now. What all this is about. Okay? Now, I want to give props because I've used it. Many of my clients with PTSD have used it. Microdosing with whole plant mushrooms is, in my opinion, better than most any synthetic antidepressant out there. So I want people to pay attention to that. All right. And these are going to be stand-up people. And I've represented cops before. And I can tell you, I've sat down with these guys, and the ones that do the most stressful work, like SWAT people. I remember a SWAT officer that told me at nighttime he would stick a shotgun in his mouth and contemplate blowing his head off. Mm-hmm. Okay. Like, dude, you might want to smoke some weed, take a couple mushrooms or something, because the psychiatrist is going to dump, antidepressants and all these mood altering synthetic substances into you. I'd like to see a place where, these first responders are okay from a cultural standpoint, from an employment standpoint, using these natural substances that have thousands of years of history of their use and their safety. Okay. And I think that's where this is going. And as a society, I think we're going to push through the medical use of psychedelics for things like depression faster than we're going to get weed legalized across the country. Because the research has been there since the 50s. Back in the 50s, they started using psychedelics to see if we could come up with a truth serum. Okay? They gave troops LSD and had them march. And when you watch the videos, it's like, this is freaking comedy, the Keystone Cop routine. But what they found out was that the effects on depression were profound. My father-in-law was a psychiatrist back in these days at the National Health Service, and we talked about what they found. And the government shit themselves, like, oh, we can't, this is not what we want. We want a true serum. We don't want a medicine here. But the evidence was there. Tim Leary may have been somebody who, kind of poked the bear a little bit, and Nixon withdrew all this stuff. But the evidence is there. It's scientific evidence. And now it's being brought out. The dust, the cobwebs are being dusted off. We look at it. And when you look at the scientific evidence for Prozac, and that a sugar pill was as effective as Prozac in treating depression, now we look at microdosing with psilocybin or using other of these hallucinogens and the profound effects on depression. Like, at some point, you've got to tell people in academia and these people that have their own, emotional truths or personal beliefs about this stuff, stop, pull your head out of your ass a little bit, look at the science here, try to be neutral, see if we can move this forward. So this story, I want to applaud it. It caught my attention because the use of these naturally occurring hallucinogens, we can go back to the Oracle of Delphi and even earlier than that, where they were using hallucinogens for many, many reasons. Culturally, it was okay. It was, restricted to certain things. So we did not have problems with drugs back in the early days that we have now because culturally it was allowed. No one was going to say, oh, it's illegal to, use the opium poppy. Yeah, shut up. You do what you goddamn well please. Today, we've got everybody trying to tell us what to do and what not to do. But human beings, when they try something, they go, oh, this worked. Guess what they're going to do again? That's what we're dealing with these substances that a human being can figure out inside themselves that, ooh, this makes me feel better. Okay, and unless you show me that this is going to be horrible for me, consequences, they're going to continue to do it. Even when the consequences are horrible, some of these substances get used over and over again. We're not talking about opioids. We're not talking about stimulants here. We're talking about a naturally occurring hallucinogen that just has profound effects. And what I'd like to see come out of this is some research to try and figure out, why does this work? We have enough information about the brain right now to come up with some theories and then work out some experiments and see if you can get the factual data. Not the garbage floating around out there, but the actual factual data that if we use these substances medically controlled way, we expect these results, and consequences of this are predictable. And this is going to send shockwaves through the pharmaceutical industry because they're making billions of dollars having psychiatrists and just regular physicians write prescriptions for all these goddamn antidepressants without considering that there are other ways to do it that are safer, more natural. But I'm telling you what, they're going to take away the stock value of these pharmaceuticals companies. And that, when I hear the negativity coming out, that's where my mind goes. Someone's in your back pocket with the threat, I'm going to take money away from you if you don't do what I tell you to do here, or try to slow this up. I don't buy it anymore. I want to give applause to these people. Go forward with this. Bring the evidence out. Let's talk about it. Let's be scientific about it. Point out the knuckleheads with their head up their ass. Just have a dogma. It's not Aristotelian. It's not logical. It's not the scientific method. Let's go there. And the scientific method will prove that this is better than any of these antidepressants for mild to moderate depression. I'm going to throw it back at you because I'm on one today. I'm going to start screaming and yelling here pretty soon. So
yeah,
let's throw it back for you guys to comment about this.
Oh man, this is man, Dale, I just want people to be able to use things that actually help them. There's so much money dumped into things that don't help individuals, that people say are going to help individuals and just don't help them in so many different ways. I just want people to be able to get the help that they want and that they're seeking, so that way they can be just better human beings at life overall. And if mushrooms are something that helps individuals with that, then I'm all 100% for it.
Heck yeah, it's a great story, Dale. This is what progress looks like. Science catching up to what nature's been showing us all along. Healing doesn't always come from a pill bottle, and something like this should be fast-tracked because our veterans and many just average citizens suffer all the time, and we're poisoning them. And this fast-track this, please.
Yeah, I mean, I feel you, Stone. I thought that mustache was saying something for a second.
It's always saying something, Jason.
What's just frustrating as hell to me, because I've been through these battles with weed over my career, is that there's the ability within the government to just slow you up, knock you off course, and trip you up, and they continue to do it. I mean, I can't tell you how many times either myself or my colleagues have been in court to force a federal judge to order the DEA to check the box and send some poor schlub spending millions of dollars to study something the next step.
Yep.
Okay. That's the bullshit game we've been playing. And I'm just tired of it. I really am tired of it. I want to call out people who do this with impunity and think no one's watching, okay? Because they have a belief system that is contrary to science. So they're trying to stop the science, okay? And that's what we've seen here. Science will not be stopped. That's the problem they got. Because even if it's not some big, proved study, people that have a brain that understand science are using this and reporting, hey, this is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm getting out of this. And yeah, people may abuse this, but shit, pay attention to people that understand science. They're telling you this works. Can we figure out how not to fight over moving forward with this? But hey, I think we all need to scream about people who try to trip this process up, because the bureaucracy allows them to. And that's part of I'm irritated with the bureaucracies out there. They're not helping this, or just making it worse. And, look at who's funding the bureaucracies and the people running them. That's where I get stuck. It's like, this is all about money and power, and they don't give two shits about people. So if it's a cop, it's a firefighter, and a veteran, what are you going to say against them? They come forward and say, this worked great, better than Prozac.
Yep.
What are you going to say about them? Oh, you're what?
Exactly.
They're putting their life on the line for you, and you're going to now call them names because they're saying something you don't like?
Yep.
Sit down and shut up, buddy.
I'm with you, Dale. Any final thoughts on this, Nate, before we move on? All right, fair enough.
Beautifully put by everybody. And yeah, Dale, great article. Thank you.
Yes, and on that, you know what I'm saying? We're going to be right back after this commercial break.
Every legend has a humble beginning.
In world news, leaders are gathering today for the annual summit.
I want to tell you something, Che. The government is watching us through the television.
Oh, John.
Look, right there. They're trying to hack into my TV box.
We're still not able to hack into the TV box, sir.
Ha! But they can't.
I've rebuilt the entire electronic system, and it sends and receives signals through quantum phase space. They'll never get in. Engage target.
In other news, local authorities are investigating a series of strange atmospheric phenomena reported by residents.
Ma'am, we're with the federal government. We need to ask you some questions.
John?
Is there a problem? We've been trying to penetrate your TV box for over 6 months.
I told you they were trying to watch us through the TV, but you didn't believe me.
We can't get in, and to be frank, we have no idea what you've created.
Yeah, that's the point. It's called privacy. You know what the Fourth Amendment guarantees?
All we know is that we can't get inside. We want to know if you can create one for us.
QUX. Even the government wants one.
Stop it.
Long time.
Oh, we're back. Stop whatever you're doing.
Yeah,
make sure you smash
cool.
that like button. I know we'll appreciate it. You'll appreciate it. And YouTube will appreciate it. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. And all of the articles that we cover on today's show, you can read directly on our website at www.highat9news.com.
Introducing QUX Pay, or simply the Pay app.
Where you can pay like it's nobody's business.
Because it isn't. It's what everyone's been clamoring for. It's finally here.
Secure every payment. Your data stays private. QUX will never sell your data for profit, period. Pay friends, family, contacts instantly. No hidden fees. No limits. Spend on the move.
With this patented technology, you can use debit, credit, bank transfers, cash cards, and even crypto completely offline.
Amounts transferred through the Pay app reach their destination instantly. Transfers in a flash. As quick as sending a text. No more waiting around like crypto. Are you ready for the future of payments? The state of the art for money is finally here.
Data privacy and security protocols trusted by militaries and banks worldwide. QUX Pay, the Pay app.
Available as an app and point of sale system, personal and corporate accounts available. Go to QUXPay.com and start using the Pay app today.
Oh, yes, and we are back, and we are going to roll right into Mr. Stone Slade from the great state of Texas. in the subdued city of Austin. That's right. He's smoking tumbleweed, and apparently he's not traveling to Wyoming anytime soon to restock on Delta 8 or even a cannabis beverage. It is none other than Mr. Stone Slade.
All right, all right.
Yeah.
What are we doing today? Today we're going up to Canada.
Oh, man.
It's been 7 years since Canada legalized cannabis, and now a new poll shows that most Canadians think it was one of the best economic decisions the country ever made. According to Abacus data, nearly 6 in 10 Canadians see the cannabis industry as an important contributor to the national economy. That's not a fringe opinion either. 69% of liberal votes and even 58% of conservatives agree. When both sides of the aisle are aligned on anything these days, it's worth paying attention. The poll commissioned by Ornogram Global suggests that Canadians aren't just comfortable with legalization, they're ready to double down. Nearly half of those surveyed want more government involvement from agencies beyond just health, like agriculture, to strengthen the market. Others want to see tax relief or incentives for cannabis businesses, better efforts to stamp out the illicit market, and a push to develop new products categories like beverages and edibles. As Ornogram CEO Bina Goldberg put it, Canadians are ready for cannabis to be treated as a real industry, aren't we all? Not just a controlled substance, and she's right. After all, when something contributes billions to your GDP, creates jobs, and replaces an underground economy with a legitimate one, why wouldn't you treat it like a national asset? When asked about the future of cannabis's policy, 59% of Canadians said they'd rather see the rules updated to help the industry grow, even if that means cannabis becomes a bigger part of the economy. Another 58% said they'd be fine or even excited to see the government make it easier for the industry to expand. In other words, the majority of Canadians don't just tolerate cannabis, they're rooting for it. Then there's this little gem. Cannabis use is now practically tied with nicotine use in the country. 32% of Canadians said that they used cannabis in the past 2 weeks, compared to 33% who said they had used nicotine. Think about that for a second. The plant that politicians once demonized as a public health threat is now just as common as stuff people have been buying at corner stores for a century that actually is a public health threat. The survey's lead researcher, David Coletto, summed it up nicely. Canadians are connecting the dots between economic resilience and smart domestic policy at a time when global trade tensions are high and protectionism is on the rise. It makes sense that people are looking inward to industries that grow at home, literally and figuratively. Of course, Canada's legislation rollout wasn't flawless. The early days were rocky with supply shortages, confusing regulations, and more than a few headlines about inconsistent enforcement. But here's what matters. It worked. The vast majority of Canadians now buy their cannabis legally. It's reported that only 3% admit to still using illicit sources. Youth didn't spike like critics had predicted, and studies even suggested legalization is eating into alcohol sales. Imagine that, people choosing cannabis over beer. If that's not cultural evolution, I don't know what is. So as the U.S. continues to fumble its way through piecemeal reform and rescheduling debates, Canada's experience stands as a reminder that legal cannabis can be both a moral and economic win. They're building jobs, reducing crime, and shifting habits away from substances that cause far more harm. Maybe it's time for America to take another cue from its northern neighbors, because if Canada can turn a once illicit plant into a pillar of its economy, what exactly are we waiting for? I'm Stone Slade with the High at 9 News.
Stone.
Yo.
The Dirk Diggler.
Hey,
man. I mean, this Canada. I mean, and this the other study that I talked to about the youths was out of Canada. It's a very Canada day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Of course, they're seeing these types of trends. We're seeing these same types of trends here in the United States. You know what I mean? And a lot of the younger generation is just not buying into the whole alcohol phenomena and are looking for other creative substances to consume besides alcohol. And so I think this is kind of more, I feel like the alcohol industry needs to maybe diversify its portfolio a little bit.
Yeah. Definitely.
Well, it's hard to miss the fact that the United States was the champion of the war on drugs around the world. Okay. And we forced our way of thinking on the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. Let's just be clear here. Mm-hmm. We pushed for these drugs, if you want to use that word as a pejorative, to be sinful. Okay? This goes back to a conservative Christian Protestant movement at the end of the 1800s to stop people from drinking, okay, which ended up with our 18th Amendment. Okay? But if you look at what we did with drugs around the world, we wanted to demonize them for religious reasons, and I can give you the names of the people who did it, and we see them go all the way through this. And by 1937, cannabis had been demonized to the point where if you smoke it, you reefer madness and all this kind of nonsense, that was so inbred into people that they don't even think about the realities and the truth.
Mm-hmm.
They have their own emotional truth about this. Because, and I like to use the term, their mommy told them it was bad, so by God, it's got to be mad because my mommy cannot be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Well, emotional truth now is being faced with facts. Tobacco kills you from cancer. Alcohol burns your liver out. Okay? They are very addictive substances, and now they have sort of a cloud over them. Cannabis, the cloud's being lifted, but it's not gone totally. And within that sort of mindset, we're struggling with the first story. How do we define hemp? Who gives a fuck how you define hemp? Leave people alone, okay? Stop all this nonsense. They keep, waxing and waning eloquent about stupid shit. Get out of people's way. Let them be what they want. If you want to stop the black market, green light the industry. Get your tax dollars, let people have it, keep it away from kids.
Yep.
And let's go. Yep. That's what Canada's figured. And in the United States, the younger generation, and I've got kids and grandkids in these generations, I'd rather smoke weed than, I like a shot of whiskey every once in a while. I'd rather smoke weed than that.
Mm-hmm.
Or smoke tobacco. None of my kids smoke tobacco. They got, oh man, we watch people in my family die of cancer from it. Got the message, stop.
Yep.
And young people aren't stupid. Smoking tobacco kills you. Yep. It's addictive. Drinking alcohol kills you. It's addictive. Smoking weed, it's got all these bad things that these old farts say about it, but they don't believe it. Thank God. They're not buying this bullshit anymore. And they will be the next generation that just says, let's stop all this crap and let's move to a new understanding about people want to get high. Mm-hmm. I mean, and this has been since the Stone Age. They were using these substances.
Stone Age.
They just come around yesterday. No, they've been using this shit for tens of thousands of years. Okay, and all of a sudden somebody goes, well, because it's against my belief system, you can't use this. Yeah, fuck you and the horse that brought you in here. It didn't stop me. It didn't stop my kids. And now I've got a next generation of grandkids. I mean, they're not using pot like we did, but they understand that I'm not going to run and hide. Oh my God, I can't do this. No, be thoughtful, reasonable, teach people how to critically think about this. And I think that's where it's going to be heading. And I like this as a, basically, fuck you to all you knuckleheads in the United States. Stop this stuff already, please.
Fair enough. What do you guys say, Nate?
Yeah, it's been a time just kind of seeing the evolution of cannabis. Every time you look at how this is reviewed in terms of these markets that are doing it right, they have amazing things to report, right? That's been a trend. I feel like as soon as it's unfortunate, but as soon as you go outside of, how the U.S. has done this and handled it, it looks beautiful. It's weird, the trend that you see in all of these areas where it's treated, from places like Canada, where it's fairly still heavily regulated. It always has been. I mean, insanely heavily regulated. It makes some of like our California regulations look like a walk in the park, what they have it go through. And at the same time, nobody's flooding from Canada and saying, oh my God, California cannabis, this rare and beautiful thing. They're saying no, like when you do it properly and it's accessible properly, like a regular product, that you even lose sight of what a high end, a low end type of product is, just in lieu of doing it right. And we're looking at so many medical cases, especially out of Europe. And again, people doing it right, and so many positive things to report when there's not crap like bureaucracy and this weird version of traditional naysaying, kind of like to wrap up Dale's point, when you get all of that out of the way, it just turns into such an obvious good thing. What the F are we doing? Like, Jason, this is like, I think, when it comes to political pundits in this group, that's your thing, right?
Yeah.
What the F are the people in charge doing? Like, that it doesn't make any sense. And people who are on the authoritarian end, which I'll, be honest, we're maybe closer to that at this time in history than what you could point at other times.
Not even close.
But, I mean, you could, regardless if I'm right or wrong, if they're telling people how to be, why don't you focus on the right way to be? If they're not telling people to be, why are they restricting people and even seeing promotion of articles like across the media? Because there's no doubt that these are all one and the same thing, where it simply seems to be demonized on the US side of things. And that's really crazy and weird. And all I can really point to is just how messed up we made our systems, where it's allowed, it's not allowed. These people took advantage of it and tried to make a business of it. These politicians don't like that it's that close to weed. And so much of our reporting sounds like that, doesn't it? Versus just what's going on outside of the US, which sounds like this fluffy cloud of progress that it's like, how do we get that? You know what I mean? And just some, I could keep going. That's all emotional right there. But
just remember,
I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Just remember, Nate, in regards with that, just remember the mainstream media is all controlled by Democrats and the left. Just remember that.
I think it's team billionaires versus team working class is how I look at it.
That's fair. I think that's fair. I think that's very fair.
Versus right.
That's very fair.
Illusions.
It's very fair. It's very fair.
And I think both you and I are centrists, whether or not we want to call ourselves that on a given day of the week. And that's just how I think most sane people think.
I prefer to call myself a realist.
Sane people,
I prefer realist rather than a centrist.
I prefer, hey, I like you, bro. We don't need labels.
Yeah, look at that. Stone, what? Stone, the original Super Trooper today.
Look at
these glasses, bro.
Yeah, it's already in the chat, bro. Come on.
I know. I like this. I'm enjoying this today.
Please.
Yeah. And on that,
we'll give you no sovereign citizen shit, or you're going to jail.
Exactly. On that, we're rolling into our final commercial, and we're going to be right back.
I just ordered the summertime strawberry salad when added steak on top here at Anna's. Make sure you do the same thing too next time you're in downtown Long Beach. Come on down and check out Anna's Joint on the 400 block of Pine Street. They have amazing selection of beers, foods, and when you come down here to Anna's, you can even challenge me to a game of shuffleboard if you want to lose. Did you get that? So, next time you're in downtown Long Beach on Pine Avenue, make sure you stop by Anna's Joint on the 400 block. Not only do they have Anna's Joint, this restaurant and bar, but they also have the amazing deli next door, and then next door to that they have a very exotic flower shop. You may want to stop by and say hi.
I get it.
And we are back. We're going to roll right into Mr. Nate Winokur. Nate was unjustly persecuted by the state of California and their corrupt policies of trying to close down businesses that are actually making money. And so now he's making money a whole new way with an online educational platform called Teaching Bud. It is none other than Mr. Nate Winokur.
Hello, my friends.
Yes.
How are you all doing? Thank you for having me today. I'd like to bring you a very interesting story from outside the U.S. and the continued European domination of cannabis or by cannabis. Early results from Swiss cannabis pilot bolster case for federal legalization. The move comes from the Swiss federal government as it continues to consider its draft of the Cannabis Products Act, which could see nationwide legalization introduced as early as next year. If approved, Switzerland would become the first European country to implement a fully regulated, though nonprofit, adult use cannabis market. Originally intended to inform federal policy design, Switzerland's 7 authorized pilot trials now look likely to overlap with national implementation. This means data from projects such as Zuri can may continue to shape policy even after the law takes effect. While early reports from Zurich suggest that high participant satisfaction and measurable diversion from the black market, researchers caution that comprehensive health and behavioral findings will take years to assess. The federal draft bill, which mandates periodic evaluation and allows cantonal flexibility, appears to anticipate such ongoing adaptation, a signal that Switzerland's approach to legislation will remain iterative and evidence-led. The city of Zurich has also applied to extend its Zurich Cannabis with Responsibility adult use cannabis pilot until 2028, 2 years beyond its original 2026 end date, following what officials describe as encouraging early results in reducing illicit sales and improving public health outcomes. According to city authorities, the proposal was submitted on October 20th and would require approval from the Federal Office of Public Health, FOPH, which oversees all national pilot projects. The city has requested an additional CHF of the equivalent of 865,500 euros in funding to continue operations over the next 3 years. Since its launch 2 years ago, Zurican has enrolled more than 2,300 participants and recorded about 88,000 legal transactions, corresponding to roughly 750 kilograms of cannabis sold under strict regulation. Only 750 kilograms, huh?
That's it.
Officials estimate this represents 8.11 million euro withdrawn from the black market, highlighting the program's potential to shift consumption towards legal, safer channels. They do that too there, huh? City Councilor Andreas Hari, who heads Zurich's Department of Health and Environment, says the extension would allow authorities to continue evaluating long-term health and behavioral effects. If approved, the extension would make Zurican one of Europe's longest-running and most data-rich cannabis regulation studies, producing evidence that could directly inform Switzerland's forthcoming Cannabis Products Act and guide future amendments under the law's built-in evaluation framework. The latest academic review of Zurican offers the most detailed insight yet into how Switzerland's pilot is designated to test the public health impacts of regulated cannabis sales. Published in September 2024 in the Internal Journal of Drug Policy, the study outlines how the project assesses behavioral, mental health, and social outcomes among a cohort of 2,100 regular cannabis users over 3 years. Participants can legally buy cannabis from one of 3 types of outlets: pharmacies, nonprofit social clubs, or the Municipal Drug Information Center. Each designed to test different models of controlled access. I think the social club would be my go-to out of that list. According to the research team from the Psychiatric University Hospital Zurich, PUK, and the University of Zurich, the study aims to identify which frameworks most effectively promote lower risk cannabis use. Legal regulation makes it possible to apply specific harm reduction measures to reduce the potential risks associated with cannabis use and to promote public health, the authors stated. Unlike previous international models that either over-commercialized or relied on prohibition, Zurican was conceived as a middle ground framework balancing to access and safety. It also introduced a novel assessment tool, the lower risk cannabis use, knowledge, and behavior scales to measure whether participants learn and apply safer use principles over time. We hypothesize that a multi-level implementation of harm reduction principles with repeated and tailored provisions of such information in a trusting environment will lead to an increase in specific knowledge and its behavioral implementation, the study notes. The researchers emphasize that their findings not only inform Zurich's public health strategies, but also help determine how Switzerland designs and adjusts its national cannabis market once the federal legalization framework, the Cannabis Products Act, is enacted. So I think there's some really interesting stuff going on there in Switzerland. They've basically run a study. The study has gone splendidly well, and they're even measuring different ways of being able to sell product. The only thing about that article I don't really like is they pull the same trick that I've seen done 100 times when they talk about the street value of cannabis or the street value of cocaine. They break it down on a gram by gram basis, and they assume the whole thing is going to be stacked up by grams. And if it's cannabis, they're assuming like $20 times 88,000, and they're like, look how much black market weed we took off the market. And as a cannabis consumer, I'm like, it doesn't really work that way. But it's, a wishful thinking on that side. Everything else sounds like splendid information. I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about that. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Nate with America's #1 cannabis news show, daily news show. Did I get that right, Jason?
America's #1 daily cannabis news show.
Thank you guys so much for having me. What do you guys think?
Well, I like to point to the Swiss as being more scientific and more interested in factual accuracy. Okay? And they don't labor under this cloud that we've had for well over a century here in this country. Using drugs makes you a sinner, and we're going to punish you. They don't have any of those overlaying assumptions that we deal with here in the United States. Okay, so it looks to me like they're trying to do some experimentation to see if we're going to do this, how are we going to, what's the best way? And let's take empirical evidence. And Nate, you understand this. If you're a scientist, you want empirical evidence, look at how it was gathered, come up with some thesis about it, and then go test your thesis. I like to see them do that because that's how this should roll out. Remove the emotional overlay of bullshit here, and let's just be scientific about it. And I mean, we're not going to get people to stop trying to inflate the value of black market weed.
No.
That seems to be in people's DNA here. But like in
I just want to believe we're above that,
Well, yeah, but that's an emotional belief because human beings are just like that. I'm sorry. When you look at places like Portugal, where again, they didn't suffer from our delusional thinking, said, let's look at reducing the harms here as opposed to just locking somebody up and ignoring the harms from doing that. Because that's what we've been doing here in this country. We're looking for better ways to do this, and let's all talk about it. I think that's a great way to approach this.
Since the Swiss are getting so heavy on cannabis, I just wish that Swiss Army would compete with Fiskars, because I'm pretty sure that they'd be able to make something that would beat Fiskars in the trimming game.
Jesus. God. You want to bump your head this morning? Or
then they can make a little mini trimmer version that would fit inside of a Swiss Army knife too, for when you're camping and on the go and out in the woods. You know what I mean? That would be great.
Out in the woods trimming your weed, right?
Yeah.
I like that there's multiple spots in Europe now where there are social clubs. Like they're kind of popping up. Where's this? The third, fourth country?
Yeah,
pretty cool.
When you treat cannabis like a health issue instead of a crime, everybody wins. I mean,
but I wonder,
you made a new industry, and if you didn't regulate the hell out of it or expect them to do some magical thing when it comes to revenue generation and therefore taxing, Jason, you can maybe talk about this because this is something you've experienced personally. But when it comes down to simply not looking at us as being, the next big industry that needs to be taxed to hell, but rather people that are looking to raise and grow a new industry, which we have every indication that, again, everywhere except for the US, they seem to really want to promote this and get it going. Where in the US, we have this inbuilt schizophrenia where we're both supposed to be here and everybody wants us here. Literally, the majority of the public wants us here, yet somebody doesn't want us here. And this weird shadow group of people who don't want us here are fighting against us here. Anyone want to shed light on that? Because it just seems like such a weird cultural clash because, I mean, I don't know. All I can tell you is that fortunately I'm in an area that embraces, although there's all sorts of things that could be done right, at least embraces cannabis,
Yeah, I feel you. I feel you. I'm with you, the overtaxation, but I think part of the reason why you don't see that in Sweden is because Sweden, I think their cannabis is covered under their health care to some degree. And so I think that has something to do with that, because all Swedens they get like free healthcare out there. As everyone's always pointing to them as the example. It's like, oh, everyone in Sweden gets free healthcare. Why can't we get free healthcare here in America?
If that's the case, I would have signed up for that program too.
See what I'm saying? See what I'm saying, Nate? And I think that probably has something to do with it. But at the same time, I question the quality of what these people are getting. Because I don't think they're getting flour. I think this is just for, formulated products. I don't think that they have like actual flour that's available for people to be consuming in that way. And that's one of the reasons why they can equate this whole black market argument, is because they're not giving the people actually what they want. They're giving them half of what they want, or
do you guys feel that's an effective Trojan horse to get cannabis into a culture, for it to be accepted is through that channel? Or do you feel like something that's on that level of regulation will ultimately backfire?
Well, it's already is backfiring, because the people that want to consume flour are going to consume flour, and the people that want to benefit or will benefit from those products are going to take those products regardless, because they're benefiting from them. Either way, you're not, just because you say, hey, you can only have it this way and it's legal, isn't going to be like, oh well, I'm not going to consume it the other way that I want to consume it. That's not reality. You know what I mean? Unless the penalties get like so crazy to where you're like in Malaysia where they'll like kill you, that's when you're going to worry about it. Until then, ain't no one going to worry about it. They're just like, what, I'll take my chances, and what I'm saying, live free or die type of mindset.
Regardless, I like the idea that I can travel to these places and it's no longer taboo.
You can travel there. Doesn't mean you can travel with it there, but you can travel there. And why not? Let's go to the Swiss Alps.
They don't suffer from the cultural problems we have in this country dealing with mental health. They don't demonize mental health problems like we do in this country. And drugs have been sort of thrown into the demonization of mental health problems. They actually treat mental health with whatever seems to work. We don't do that in this country. We have no idea. What do you do with a drug addict in the Tenderloin who's got fentanyl and they can't stand up? What do? You walk by and spit on them, ignore them? Or what? I mean, this is at the core of the problem here. We have decided culturally that drug use is a bad thing.
Yeah.
Okay. As opposed to this is human behavior, and how do we deal with it? Let's try to stop human behavior rather than deal with human beings as human beings. We're trying to, from a political standpoint, cultural standpoint, make them be something that they just aren't.
That's true.
Humans use these substances. And what happens when they do? We put blinders on. Well, we don't know what to do with them. Well, better figure this out, because we can put somebody into a temporary hold if they're a threat to themselves or to society in this country. But we don't know what to do beyond that. You got someone who is heavily addicted to heroin or fentanyl, and they can't find their ass with both hands. We do not know what to do with them. We try to conflate that problem with smoking weed, which it's not even in the same universe. But here we are, trying to deal with a mindset and a cultural inability to deal with this. And our laws are just so schizophrenic and so far behind reality of we have a Paleolithic nervous system. Kind of likes to get high. And you can pretend it doesn't. It's like we like to have sex too. And we can pretend we don't. Yeah, good, great. You think like that. You're going to still do it.
Dale, your comments, make me think like with California is such a mess, right? I wonder if California would be better if we had like a policy like the Baker Act installed.
Okay. I don't know what the Baker Act is, so tell me.
The Baker Act is when if someone is saying that you're mentally unstable, they can lock you up and they can put you into a mental institution onto a minimum 72-hour hold for evaluation, and you can't get out until you can be proved to be mentally stable.
Well, we have 5150 here in California. Does the same thing.
Yeah, but no. They just throw them in jail. They throw them in jail. They don't throw them into a mental treatment center for real valuations.
And that's not going to help at all, because jail doesn't fix mental illness.
Exactly. It only makes it worse.
They like to do it because you're angry at them and you want to punish them. That doesn't work. We need to find a better way to deal with people, because drug addiction is in the head.
Yep.
I mean, it's a lot of physical part of it. It's in the head. Why are you doing this? You're telling you're going to kill yourself. Why are you continue to do it? You go, flat back a dog to get enough heroin to shoot up. And it's like, okay, this is crazy. This is insane. How do we deal with people like this? And we put our blinders on and pretend like we don't know. It's a political problem. No, it's not. It's a human problem. And if we don't recognize this human problem, stop trying to change human nature by a law, get our head out of our ass and realize we are who we are. Can't pretend we're not. And trying to punish people for being who we are rather than, right, what do we do with you? Okay, let's take away your driver's license. Let's watch you and monitor you closely until you prove you're not, out flat backing for your heroin, and on the street living in a tent. You can't even stand up. I mean, we refuse to look at human beings as who they are. We pretend there's something that we think they are. Then it blows our mind, and we want to punish people for being human beings. It's not sustainable. It's really not.
Fair enough. Speaking of punishing people and whatnot, I have one final story for you guys. I think you'll like this. I think you like this, Dale, because a former U.S. attorney weighs in on Lynchburg Council's secondhand marijuana smoke proposal. You guys get ready, Stone. ABC 13 spoke with former U.S. Attorney John Fishwick about the new law proposed by the Lynchburg City Council regarding protecting children from secondhand marijuana smoke. Council approved its legislative agenda on Tuesday night, which consists of over a dozen proposed laws that it would like the state legislature to consider. One of the proposals is from Mayor Larry Taylor and Councilwoman Stephanie Reed and calls for adults to be penalized if they smoke marijuana around children in enclosed spaces. ABC 13's Hayden Robertson asked Fishwick if this could get even picked up in the General Assembly since weed was decriminalized in 2020. He says, is this something the legislature can do? Robertson asked. And then Robertson says, I think these proposals from Lynchburg City Council are good proposals, and there's nothing inconsistent with Virginia law to prevent the legislature from passing these, Fishwick said. What they are asking the legislature to do is already illegal in Virginia, to drive and smoke marijuana. According to the Virginia Cannabis Control Authority, it is illegal to do the following things with marijuana: selling or buying adult use cannabis, pop-up shops, or other limited time markets violate the law. But growing plants visible to the public is also illegal. Cultivating more than 4 plants at home, driving under the influence of cannabis, carrying cannabis while providing transportation services such as a cab, Uber, or Lyft. I guess they don't have Waymo out there. And storing cannabis that's open and accessible to the passenger area of a vehicle. The passenger area includes any area within reach of the driver, the area where passengers are seated, an unlocked glove compartment, or the living area of a motorhome. Council is also looking to increase the charge on violators of the law from a Class 4 misdemeanor to a Class 1, which would be a $2,500 fine and 1 year of jail time. They also want the violator to be charged with child abuse or neglect because they want to take your kids away. And Fishwick told ABC 13's Hayden Robertson that this same language could also be applied to the Virginia law that prohibits smoking a cigarette in an enclosed space with a child under 15. Right now, that's just a $100 civil penalty, in a quote. Anything that can be done to strengthen those laws to make those penalties more severe, I think is a good idea. So I think the city council is on the right track here, Fishwick said. Lynchburg City School Board member Latita Lowley told Robertson on Tuesday that she has heard reports of this happening. In a quote, I have had teachers saying in general that children are lethargic in the morning, and then after lunch recess, they come alive because their parents were either smoking it in the car, they smoked it at home, and so the kids come in under the influence, Lowry said. Robertson reached out to the Lynchburg City School Division to see if they had any records or reports of this happening to their students, and once we have more information, we will keep you informed and updated and with a follow-up story. And I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this. It's all about the children, but all I have to say is, like that old saying, but did you die? And I guess weed for the people.
I check out every time I hear like about the children. Like, really, like, guys. I mean, yeah, please, Dale, you have a far better perspective on this stuff than I.
There's no scientific foundation for these statements about, smoking weed around kids is going to cause what? There's never been a cancer caused by smoking weed. So if you're around the smoke somehow and you might get some in your lungs, what are we supposed to take from that? Now, smoking tobacco, kills 500,000 people a year from cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So maybe we should be concerned because there's numbers to show that inhaling the smoke causes cancer.
Mm-hmm.
That's scientifically based. Then to extrapolate that to cannabis and then try to equate cannabis and alcohol, these are just, they're
stretches of the imagination, Dale. Yeah.
Oh, but see, this is part of this emotional belief system that you put facts in front of them, they get angry. Because how come you can't see this? Well, what I see is you're full of shit to your eyeballs. It's coming out your ears. But, that just gets them all upset. And under the influence of cannabis is nothing near like under the influence of alcohol. Smoking cannabis is nothing like the dangers of smoking tobacco. But they still want to conflate this. And I mean, I don't know if you saw this, but we recently had a bunch of product recalled in California because it's attractive to children. Whatever the hell that's supposed to mean. And it's no kid has ever died from this.
Well, not to mention kids aren't even allowed in dispensaries. So why is this even a thing? You know what I mean? Like if it was sold in like a CVS or a Walgreens or, you know what I'm saying, Circle K, I could understand that argument because kids walk into these stores. But you have to be able to prove you're an adult even to walk into the store in the first place. That's totally such a ridiculous argument.
Mm-hmm. And if you're a kid, how do you get it? Well, because someone
got it for you. Yep, exactly.
Okay.
Or they stole it.
How do you blame the industry for that?
Yeah, or they stole it.
Everything's attractive to a kid if you tell them they can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I've raised 5 of them. Those son of a bitches, as soon as you tell them you can't do something, guess what they're going to do?
Mm-hmm. Right? Exactly.
That's human nature.
That's kids. So that's kids being kids. You know that saying, boys will be boys, right, Dale?
Well, they go in and steal my goddamn weed and thought I didn't know what they were doing. Mm-hmm. Okay, come on.
Mm-hmm.
What am I going to do? Going to throw them in jail, call the cops? No, kick their ass, talk to them, say, hey, it's my weed. If you want some, go get your own goddamn weed.
What do you guys say, Stone?
The same old shit, man. This isn't about protecting children. It's about fear politics and control, and don't fix parenting with prison time and punishing adults for smoking at home and public health. It's performative. It's all a bunch of nonsense.
I just feel since they brought up the thing that smoking a cigarette around the kids is $100 fine. I just feel like that should at least if they're going to do anything, then those two things should match with the same penalties. If they were going to do this, those two things should be the same penalties and just call it a day.
They shouldn't. Cigarette should be a much higher penalty if they're gonna.
I agree with that, but I'm just saying I'm speaking from a legislative mindset. You know what I mean? If they are going to make these harsh penalties for cannabis and not infringe the same things on cigarettes, to me that's a problem. But if they make them the same, at least I can palate that. At least you can understand where their mind's at, because we all know that cigarette smoke is a lot worse than cannabis smoke. And the fact that this other school worker or teacher or whatever she is gaslighting the media, saying, "Oh, we have all these kids that are coming in. They're all lethargic in the morning because their parents are waking and baking." You know what I mean? Stop it. Just stop it. Just stop.
It's interesting that this is mainly surrounding driving and like driving practices. And, on one hand, this, obviously we know what like open container laws and drinking and driving and stuff like that. And, there are limits and levels of education that we are given, and even levels of where we're educated on how we would be tested if we find one of ourselves in one of those situations. Right. This seems. Now, just resting on all, on everybody here. Does this seem like it's about there? Or this seemed weirdly specific and going quite a bit further than what's given in alcohol laws. And I know we were talking about tobacco just now, but what about alcohol to compare something that's an inebriating substance?
Well, I was just having another thought, Nate, is that how this law sounds like it would be implemented. It sounds like if you're a Uber, a Lyft driver, or something, and you pick someone up from the airport and they have some weed in their bag and it's in the back seat or in the front seat, they could legally be liable to lose their license and get subject to this under that, because it would technically be within their reach. And how are they even how do they even know this?
This is, on Dale. How would you translate that? I guess would be, something I'd ask a judge or a lawyer. But on the other hand, if everybody's pointing out that this is deliberately vague, then why isn't this like open container laws? It just seems like a weird extra step to demonize cannabis when we literally have dozens of years of how you should treat an open container like situation. Dale?
I don't think the open container law really makes sense for
the
cannabis.
problem here is they use terms like under the influence or intoxicated. If you look at all the laws across the country that deal with drunk driving, which is alcohol-induced intoxication or the influence of alcohol, then we have the science. You put it in your system, it goes through your liver. We know what it does to you, how it affects your ability, your psychomotor skills. Okay, and the intoxication is, you start with, is it a toxic substance? And you take less than a toxic amount, and you deal with the effects on the body at less than a toxic amount, and so you're intoxicated. I mean, the terminology here is where I'd start with, because the cops don't want to do the hard work of a field sobriety test. They want to do a blood test, say, oh, you're under the influence. And the argument is always be, no, you prove I'm under the influence. And so they drag in some nitwit who says, oh, if you do this, you're under the influence. 5 nanograms mean you're under the influence. And then you bring in the experts who actually know what to talk about and say, oh, no, it's dependent on your experience and who you are. And like with any other drug that you get from the pharmacist, there's a label that says, don't drive until you understand its effects on your body. And the government loses if they go to that battle because they can't prove you're intoxicated with a number, because it doesn't fit the entire paradigm of intoxication. This is not a central nervous system depressant. And that's where I would start. I would bring in an expert to talk about what it means to have the central nervous system depressed, psychomotor skills, why you shouldn't be driving when you're all up on alcohol, and then take a look at what cannabis, and they have plenty of studies out there, 5 nanograms means nothing. You've got to do the work to see, are you actually incapable of operating a motor vehicle at the time you were stopped because you had this amount of this substance in your body, and they just can't prove it. So they just make it so expensive to do that people go, all right, I'll just settle it, take a reckless driving, whatever, and defer and treat. I mean, I've done this many times. Doesn't fix the problem because they keep coming back at it. And the foundation of it is absolute horse shit. Okay, that's my starting point. I don't use those terms because I speak the King's English when I'm in trial, but for the average person, it's bullshit. When you smoke a joint, it's not like drinking a beer. Like, it's just not. So don't compare them and stop it. And that's part of what I'm talking about here, Nate. Anybody listening, is that to conflate an understanding of one substance to another is not scientifically viable. You've got to prove it. And what I do is I make factually accurate presentations to a jury. They go, oh, yeah, well, this is horseshit. You can even get the judge to go, oh, come on, man. No, you weren't under the influence. Show me the camera where you did the field sobriety test and they fell on their ass and couldn't stand on one leg and stuff like that. No, they don't have it. So they just want to make it so expensive you'll cut a deal. That's where I really have a problem with this, because it's not about the science about this. It's about power and control. And once they charge you with something, my God, they can't let go of it because they got to get something out of you other than, hey, we're free. Why in the fuck are you doing this?
Yep.
Okay, if I can get into something and I have a joint there, does that mean I smoked it? No. But alcohol has been a problem. So they want to conflate, you can reach alcohol, you're going to drink it. If you can reach a joint, you're going to smoke it. Well, if I smoke a joint and drink alcohol and then go out and drive, tell me who's a bigger problem on the road. Prove to me it's a problem, and they can't do it. They want to take these emotional belief systems, reduce them to taking away your freedom and hope it's going to work. And I fundamentally disagree with the entire equation. And, I've battled more people than I care about this. And, I get kind of heated because I'm tired of talking about this shit. We get people to think logically.
I appreciate that I appreciate you did. I'm smarter for having listened to it. So, no, thank you for that.
Anytime you get to listen to Dale, you're going to get smarter, Nate. That's just how it kind of works around here.
Or more full of shit.
You can make some folds in your brain. Well, that was fun, you guys. And thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast. And big shout out to our audience and supporters for tuning in daily and listening to the insanity that is the developing cannabis industry. Huge thank you to Catalyst Cannabis for helping us keep the lights on. And thank you to our correspondents for being absolutely amazing. Thank you to Cannabis Sativa L for giving us a reason to do this every day. And thank you to Cloud Media partners Elias and Gabriel. They're somewhere in the metaverse. And thank you all for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us. We are America's #1 daily cannabis news show. Trademarked.